So I sent that.
Okay, it's a little after 7, so let's call the meeting to order. Time is 7:02 according to my watch. Okay, 7:01. So this is a meeting of the Environmental Advisory Committee, and so we're all ready to go. Let me do the land acknowledgement first. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands in which we live and work are the traditional treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They're the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississauga and the Chippewas, recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk into a better future. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please? Okay. Yeah. If anybody has anything to add on the back of it, let's do it under new business. We have one item today, so
yeah, it was just a follow-up discussion.
Sure, let's just bring it forward when we get to the end. Okay, thanks. Got a mover and a seconder. All in favor? It's carried. We do the receipt of the minutes. I assume everybody's read the minutes that were set out. So can I get a motion to receive the meeting minutes of June 16th? Seconder? Okay, thanks. Any questions or comments on them? Any edits you need, anything, errors, omissions?
Well,
Seeing that?
just Chair, there's a follow-up on there. I was just wondering if we asked for some information.
What was it?
If on impact of carbon emissions on mature tree canopies.
That was in the notes, I suppose, but let me ask the clerk if those kinds of follow-ups get sent to, or where do they get sent? Maybe let's explore it a little bit, and we'll have a little chance to figure out what we're going to do with it. Okay, I appreciate it though. Thanks.
Okay, and there was in addition, that same last one was about the current state of invasive species.
Okay, all right. Well, let's talk about it at the end of the meeting. All in favor of the minutes as amended? We're not considering that as an amendment. It's going to be a follow-up. You don't want to change the minutes. You simply want to have a follow-up on that minutes.
Yes,
and the follow-up is listed in the minutes.
Right, because we were asking for follow-up and we haven't gotten any follow-up.
All right, so it's no amendment. Thank you. Just a motion to approve. All in favor? Great, that's carried. We have no delegations tonight. So we have one matter for consideration. It's a memorandum from the Analyst Energy and Climate Change regarding the 2024 Energy and Environment Progress Update. Well, you've got it ready to go?
Yep.
Thank you. Floor is yours.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome back after a long summer. I hope everyone had a great time. We're going to be doing the Energy Environment 2024 Progress Update. So a little background, this is a once a year kind of update on what we've been doing through the year. So there is a 1 year reporting lag, or 10 months. We're a little earlier than last year. We reported in December. This is because there are a number of divisions involved and we kind of want to hear from everyone and let them finalize their data numbers. So we hear from operational services, community services, and planning and development services. Some of these plans include And they kind of branch from the official plan and work with our strategic plan. So these are corporate action or corporate environmental action plan, stream and creek management plans, our energy plans, community and corporate, climate adaptation plan, active transportation master plan, and our natural capital plans. Here's an example of kind of what they look like. You can find all of them online, or some are printed in person at the different departments. We focus on 5 main environmental themes: water conservation, waste reduction and diversion, natural capital and biodiversity, energy and greenhouse gas emissions, and climate resiliency. So we'll get into each one of these themes and explain a little farther what they mean. So for 2024 in water conservation, we did 21% of residential business and water meters are remaining to be replaced. So we're looking to update any old infrastructure to make sure they're accurate. There's also 15,000 water meter transceiver units, which are to better automate the reading of water meters, again, to improve efficiency. So we have 20% of the town remaining. The operations division performed a total of 10 grit separator and almost 1,500 catch basin cleanouts in 2024. And this is all the dirt in the parking lots and your oils, not spills, but just pollutants in the roadway. So this is caught and removed. Almost 482 tons were reported removed during these cleanouts. And this prevents flooding and better maintains our stormwaterways. Aurora also won a Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority Healthy Water Award. And so this is recognized for improving the local waterways, ecosystems, and access to nature through our 4 bioengineering projects. The annual total rain barrel sale to the public, the annual town run rain barrel sale to the public. Starting in 2023, we sold 289 rain barrels in 2024. And this again better helps manage stormwater on private property and runoff to our rivers. The second theme we're going over is the waste reduction and diversion. From 2023 to 2024 on the bottom, there was a very little difference in the community curbside waste. So we put a graph on the top so you can see we have reduced it since 2018, 2020, we had a spike. Different theories on it, and maybe COVID, people were spending a little more consuming at home. But we have seen a downward trend over the past few years. In 2024, we also received over 120,000 pounds of textiles, or diverted that, up from 74,000 pounds in 2023. In our dog waste diversion program in the dog parks and local parks, we still saw kind of flatline 8,760 pounds. Some of these incentives that led to this success have been public waste diversion events, such as electronic waste collection, community cleanups, rain barrel sale event, and community garage sales. We've also tried to continue education through our Recycling Coach app, which provides insight to staff, provides insight to staff into search items for ongoing educational campaigns. And we are looking to do a corporate waste audit to better develop a corporate baseline recommended in our 2024 ECDMP, or our Energy Conservation Demand Management Plan. The third category we're looking at is our natural capital and biodiversity. It's an update from our kind of parks and natural areas. So we have 46 kilometers of trail, 43 parks and playgrounds continue to provide an active living lifestyle for residents. 100% of parks and trail safety inspections were completed, ensuring the best health and wellness for our participants and community members. We had 3.5 hectares of parkland per 1,000 residents. And we had 253 urban trees replaced in 2024 to ensure the future of urban forest canopy. Our trails also, we increased our trails slightly. We added more trails per 1,000 residents from 0.6 kilometers per 1,000 residents in 2023 to 0.7 in 2024. Some of these initiatives continued were opening of the John Abel Park. And the John Abel Park Community Garden has 55 plots of community gardening space, which is a great initiative by the town. Aurora Urban Forest Study was completed, setting a commitment of 40% canopy coverage by 2051. At 34% canopy coverage, currently, the canopy coverage is within our recommended York Region Forest Management Plan. And Aurora's Natural Capital Asset Management Plan was completed and council approved. An increased investment over the next 25 years, backing these targets. The fourth section is energy and greenhouse gas emissions. Before we go into it, I just want to show the difference between the community emissions we're going to discuss and our corporate emissions. So with this pie chart, we can see the corporate emissions, which the corporation of the town of Aurora is responsible for, is only 1.5% of the perimeter or the land of Aurora, where the community emissions are significantly more. So with our community energy, some of the focuses we wanted, or some of the items we wanted to focus on, were the drastic increase of electric vehicle registrations. And these are conservative numbers. They're only the electric vehicles. They don't include the plug-in hybrids. And they are only the L4G postal code registration. And these are from the Ministry of Transportation numbers. So you can see a very sharp increase from a 3.2% of cars registered in Aurora to in 2024 having almost 12% of vehicles registered as electric, which is a massive increase. And a good thing, as we've looked in our community energy plan, as electric vehicles to be a focus to reduce community emissions. It's also true when we look at our public EV charger usage. From 2023, we provided a total of 16,000 kilowatt hours, and we almost doubled it at 27,000. So it's showing the community members are using the public chargers. The community carbon emission data is about to be publicly available to the Toronto Atmospheric Fund for the 2024 numbers. Again, there is kind of a year lag time as all the data comes in and it's collected and provided to the public. But I wanted to show that 2022 and 2023, there was a slight increase. Some other town initiatives completed for the community side of energy is the Active Transportation Master Plan, which will help develop trails and bike routes. And we are looking at approximately 300 kilometers of existing trails. And the Active Transportation Master Plan proposes about 190 kilometers of new routes. You've heard this year about you were involved in our home energy retrofit program, so we look to kick that off and investigate a little more if that's a feasible thing for the community. We are continuing to implement our green development standards, even with the recent changes in some of the Ontario bills and standards, but we're still pushing for that, and we've received 5 green development standards as status quo as we continue to run it. We recently just started our Aurora Idle Free campaign to continue targeting school zones and encourage drivers to reduce their idling time. On the corporate side of things, unfortunately, the town has increased their carbon emissions by 13%, and this is due to a number of things. One of them being the Ontario grid is not becoming as clean as it typically has been. That being said, we've also increased our square footage and our usage. So we are using more, but our buildings are 15% more efficient. When saying it's 15% more efficient, we're looking at a square footage basis. So every square foot of buildings in Aurora, we're now 15% more efficient than we were in 2018. Here's kind of a graph showing the energy consumption. So you can see it's gone down in 2020 with the pandemic, we went down. We've come back up to almost the same, a little bit more energy consumption. Our square footage has increased quite a bit. Some town initiatives completed for the corporate side of things was the fleet decarbonization projects. So we purchased 2 new electric ice resurfacers and 4 hybrid vehicles. We're continuing to look at other options for decarbonization for fleet as we continue to purchase new vehicles, trying to have best practice, looking for the best technology to either electric vehicles or hybrid when applicable. Facility retrofits, facilities are continuing to do LED conversions and low flow fixtures for water. The 2024 ECDMP Council was approved for the net zero carbon by 2050. Some other upcoming projects are the fleet decarbonization, like as mentioned. We're looking to do energy audits on our facilities next year to better assess current energy use and where we can go with that to reduce emissions. Discuss these, sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. And so the last theme we're going to talk about is the climate projections. So climate adaptation is a big thing we're looking at here, is how do we handle these changing weather events in the coming years. And this is from the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. Just to give everyone an idea, we have the annual temperature expected changes for the next 50 years approximately. So on the left here, we have the baseline from 1981 to 2010. The average annual temperature in Aurora was about 6.8 degrees, 7 degrees. We're already in the 2020s, we've gone up 1.5 degrees. By 2050, we're looking at an average temperature of 10 degrees. And by 2080, almost 12.3 degrees. So these warmer weathers, there's less freeze thaw cycles, hotter temperatures, more AC use, there's weather-related health concerns as well. And then when we look at the annual precipitation, the same kind of hierarchy. In 2005, Aurora saw around 8.8 meters of precipitation per year. This does include snow and rain. By 2050, it's almost a meter more at 9.4. And by 2080, it's expected to be about 9.7 meters. Some additional town initiatives completed to consider these climate projections are creek rehabilitation, flood control, water main rehabilitation, stormwater pond and maintenance is crucial, making sure they work correctly, protecting infrastructure and local communities. Stormwater pond inspections and maintenance are continued. Climate considerations also include infrastructure project planning during the design phase, with examples such as resiliency measures, stream bank improvements, or invasive species mitigation. And lastly, combining all of these, we wanted to provide a spotlight on the Aurora Town Square and how all of these themes were considered in the development of it. So for climate resiliency, we looked at durable building design, public cooling, such as the spray feature, splash pad. The stormwater management, it was all considered with landscaping, cisterns, and the permeable pavement, allowing water to drain into the surrounding land, not run it off. For energy, they had high efficiency HVAC, building controls, daylight design, maximizing natural daylight, EV charging, and ideally bike racks and public transit accessible. Natural capital and biodiversity, they had water efficient landscaping, well-planted site, and bird-friendly glass. If anyone's seen the big glass facade, there's little dots there to prevent birds from hitting it. And water conservation, there were low flow water fixtures through the facility. The green roof was installed with water efficient landscape in combination. The water diversion management, construction waste management was 75% diverted from landfill, and storage and collection of recyclables, inclusion of recycling storage areas, and the 3-stream bin system, such as compost, recycle, and garbage. That is our update.
Thanks, appreciate it. A lot of good stuff in there.
It's quick, condensed.
Let's open the floor for questions and comments. Angela, you want to go first? Oh. Pardon me? Oh, okay, sorry. I have to have a mover and a seconder to receive the report. Ken? Yeah. You? All in favor? Oh, you just wanted it on the floor. Oh, I get it. Got it. Thank you. Now we can talk. So, Angela, go.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question about your, and I've discussed this with other people in, I believe it's your department, about the stream rehabilitation plans. I found out that the only streams that are being rehabilitated are the ones that abut public land. not private streams. I think that's a big problem because you're rehabilitating this portion, and I think I said this last time too. You're rehabilitating this portion and you're leaving this one because it's private, but you've got private culverts through people's driveways that are a quarter of the size of the ones going under your roadways, which is causing a bottleneck and causing flooding. And also, there's a lot of, because of all the development that's gone on in town, and also because of all the, increased events, storm events, there's a lot of erosion occurring. And the reason I know this is there's a stream on my property. And I've been there 28 years, and I've never had a problem with erosion. As a matter of fact, I went to the Conservation Authority. I said, how can I prevent erosion? They said, plant all these native species. And I did what they said. It was great for 25 years. And now all my plantings that I put in, all the dogwood, they're all starting to go into the stream and the banks are eroding. So if you're not rehabilitating the private ones, how is that a stream rehabilitation when you're only doing a little section that abuts public land? And I discussed that with them and they just don't want to talk about it. So I think that's a big issue. I think if you're gonna rehabilitate the streams, rehabilitate all of it, not just little pieces that abut public land, because that's not helping anything. It's just gonna cause erosion down the road, it's gonna cause flooding, it's gonna cause issues. But just now on Temperance Street, just around the corner from me, they took a culvert going into the stream, or going under the road for the stream, redid the whole thing, it's beautiful, and yet 10 feet from that culvert is my neighbor's driveway, who has a culvert that's maybe this big. So you've got a culvert underneath the road that is 8 feet wide and 7 feet tall, going into a culvert that's 4 by 4. So it's not making sense. The stream rehabilitation that the town is doing does not make sense, and it's not helping. It's not helping the issues in terms of resiliency.
Thank you. We'll bring that back to the engineering team.
I spoke to, I believe it was Glenn,
Yes.
and they said there's nothing we can do. So I find that very frustrating. I think it's not fair to private residences that certain people have flood mitigation done because they abut public land, and yet the rest of us are on our own. So it should be a holistic approach to stream management, not a fragmented one.
Angela, can I also add in there, maybe this is a legal issue, and maybe that it should be directed not just from engineering, but perhaps to our legal department. Because it could be a lot of privacy issues going on people's lands, changing. I'd like to see what the inventory says.
Yeah.
And see the examples that you have where there are these kind of bottlenecks. But it does create, you can't only push so much water through a size of a pipe.
Exactly, and the problem is most of the streams that are on private lands are in the very old parts of town.
Yeah.
And so those people, a lot of them are long-term residents. They don't have the money to spend thousands of dollars rehabilitating their stream. And yet what they're doing, what the town is doing by rehabilitating other portions is affecting them.
Yeah, I get it. So, anybody else have any comments on that particular thing or anything else? Thank you, that's great.
No problem.
David?
Chair, I was going to bring that, but since you brought that up, I'll bring up another one, sort of the same idea, and that has to do with tree canopies. I was gonna say something. We speak the same language, Chair. Under the natural capital assets and biodiversity, it's great what the town is doing with respect to the trails and they've added 253 urban trees replaced in 2024 to ensure the future of urban forest count. But once again, with public and private land, is that what happens when a developer comes in and it's in a rural area and takes down 234 trees. You know, it's not, you're not going to get your 40% canopy for 250. So there has to be some type of checks and balances there. So I'm saying, how is that being remediated? I think it's a big concern because you have brought up about the climate change, and how it's increased. And one thing we know about climate change is we need the trees. That we need the trees.
To you, Chair, I can answer some of that. So with our green development standards, that's one of our focuses to meet a certain requirement of tree coverage within X amount of years. Obviously, you can't just put a mature tree in the parking lot, but tree coverage to parking lot ratios, encouraging green roofs. I'm not sure what the development, the park requirements.
We have a tree compensation bylaw. So whenever there's a new development, they have to take down a tree. There's a tree math essentially to say how many trees they have to put in, that type of thing, and that gets assessed by our team in our parks department to make sure that they're meeting the base requirements. Now, that tree compensation bylaw was last updated like in 2016 or something like that. And since the council approved the Aurora Urban Forest Study and set the new canopy cover in 2024, now our Parks Department is reviewing that tree compensation bylaw, including some other key planning and planning documents, and also the tree compensation bylaw. They are reviewing those documents. So to answer essentially the question that you have, to say, okay, we now have this tree canopy target, what we have set for developers doesn't match, and do they align, right? So that's getting reviewed by the Parks Department as we speak, like right now in this time period. So when that is drafted, they will be coming to this group for comments before going to council when those documents are ready.
Follow up?
Yes, teacher, that's great to hear, but that was 2016, and we're in 2025, and look how much the temperature has changed since then. I think a drastic change has to be made to that policy. That's my opinion. I really think you have to look at it and to deter the developers from just doing, because money, like even if you increase the money, it's like, I mean, if they have the money, they're going to say, sure, yeah, we'll put in more trees, but it takes 30 years, 40 years for a mature tree. So you can't just put in a tree. I think it needs, it's not just they're looking at it. I think they have to look at it to make drastic changes.
Yeah, they're updating the document. So they're not just like, they're updating the document,
Right.
reviewing the document.
Yes, and to note, I just wanted to note, because this is summary of grant applications. Lake Simcoe has given the Green Municipal Fund for a growing canopy. And what I see is that the amount requested was $635,000. And amount approved is to be determined. So I'd like a little bit more for what's happening with that fund.
Sorry, where did you see that?
A summary of grant applications. This was at one of the council meetings.
Was it Lake Simcoe County?
Yeah, it was under the Green Municipal Fund.
Lake Simcoe County or Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority?
Maybe Ron, you can.
Well, I believe that was at council, and that was a report report about what we have been doing vis-a-vis all sorts of grants, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so you've noticed that that grant has been there, but it's to be determined typically means it's still in process. It hasn't been decided yet.
Right.
They asked a certain amount of money, but we haven't got the blessing for it. As yeah, that's what my belief is, but I think it's a reasonable question and bring it back. So,
Yeah.
so you're asking about the status of that grant?
The
in particular?
application of the review. And then it would be what that application actually was going to do with that 635. Like, I mean, I like a little bit more information on.
Sure.
On that.
Angela, you okay? You're done? You're
Yeah.
Angela?
To you, Mr. Chair. The other thing I was continuing with the tree canopy, when I lived in Toronto eons ago, whenever there was a new development, everybody had to get a street tree whether they wanted it or not. They were basically given a pamphlet, said, choose your tree, so you had all the streets were tree lined. It doesn't seem to happen here in Aurora. Like, I've seen a lot of people, existing and new developments, where there doesn't seem to be a requirement to have street trees. Can you tell me whether or not that's legislated through the town of Aurora?
Sure.
I don't know the specifics. I know we do have landscape designs that the developers have to follow and then get approved by our landscape architect. I don't know about this particular question, but that would be something that we could ask when the Parks Department comes to this committee with the update, would be something, and also I could look for that particular question,
And
but
just
yeah.
sort of to expand on that, what about existing residents? Because there's a few people on our street where thankfully they've taken their own initiative and asked for street trees. But I've had neighbors in the past who said, I don't want a street tree because I don't want to rake all the leaves. So even though it's a free tree and the town will provide it, they don't want it. So it leaves an area on the street that's like a heat sink. There's no shade. And you can tell the difference. I plant a lot of stuff. It looks like a jungle in front of my house. So when you walk down into my driveway, it's 10 degrees cooler than it is on that person's front lawn. It's just, the difference is startling. So I'm wondering if perhaps the town could start a program that, or I don't know, make it mandatory for every property to have a street tree.
Maybe it's something that could go into the tree bylaw
Yeah.
for replacement of trees.
If you don't have a tree on your front yard, you have to get one.
I know when a tree dies and we have them taken out, that the resident gets a choice of various types of trees to
Yes.
replace it, but I've never really had the complaint where someone doesn't want the tree.
Yeah.
It's
I've-
twice the other way, but you've seen it.
Well, if it's on the town's property, that's the first, I think, meter or so, it's the town's property, including the trees. So the trees get maintained and replaced, as the councilor explained, with new trees as they age, they get diseased, or they just need, for whatever reason, need to be replaced. So those sets of trees are owned
Yes.
and maintained by the town. So there's no real choice there to have a tree or not, right? Yeah.
But our neighborhood is very, very old. My house is 150 years old.
Yeah.
So a lot of those properties never have a street tree because they didn't have a street tree program 150 years ago. So they've maintained these properties without trees for that long, and they still have no trees. So I think that's an issue, and especially in the older neighborhoods, that a lot of them, the properties, they don't have a canopy because they never were required to have.
Ken, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just to reiterate what you had said, Natalie, about, so when you have a boulevard, between the sidewalk and the right of way, that's, obvious town property, but a lot of people are unaware that if you're not on the sidewalk side, that there's a certain portion of the yard of of that property that still belongs to the town, and I believe it's up to the where the water spigot is typically. A lot of people aren't aware of that necessarily, right? So also a challenge that some people, when they realize that they don't own the boulevard, that they refuse to maintain the boulevard, and that's been an issue. But I think that it's an education process as well too. At least like on the boulevard, where there may not be trees, that's essentially town. And I don't think that people are necessarily aware.
Yeah, it's a communication thing.
Yes.
You usually become aware of it when you have your water pipe burst and you're going like this, is it on my side or is it on the town side?
Exactly.
That's when it becomes very obvious to you. Other questions? Sweet. Sorry, do we have? Yes. I can't.
Shun.
Okay, Sean?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I wanted to provide some feedback again, probably on the tree canopy. Just on the visualizations, can we get a comparison? The 253 doesn't really paint a good picture on basically overall. The whole point of this, I presume, is talking about actual tree canopy coverage for town of Aurora. 253 urban trees replaced doesn't really give us a good idea of whether that's a net positive or a net negative when it comes to tree canopy. So I saw some of the other graphics give that comparison between 2023 and then 2024. If we had that data available, it'd be great to do that same style comparison for that particular slide.
Comments? No?
Yeah, no, thank you for the feedback. That may, I can figure that out. I'll try and find the numbers for
It's a
you.
math thing.
But yeah, we've been trying to show, I agree with you, the comparison from last year to this year to see, again, net positive or negative. That might have just been if they're damaged trees or diseased trees, those might also be good numbers to track.
Yeah, I think the assumption here is it's a net positive, but maybe it's just 253 trees and they're at plus 53 in there, so no net increase, for instance. Dennis, did you have a comment? Is that what you're?
Yes, through the chair, kind of following up on Shane's comments, like I think that was one of my comments. Thinking about my career, I think that I understand how hard it is to take this because this is an amalgamation of like 5, 6, 7 different reports, right? But I feel like this presentation has a lot of how much did we do. And like I appreciate the effort of the how much did we do. And I think there was one slide that kind of was saying it's like how well did we do it with regards to the Healthy Water Award. But I feel like the most important question that I asked in my career that is probably the most difficult to answer is kind of like, and how are we better off, right? And I think Shen's comment talks about that with the net positive. In my mind, I'm thinking about context of the numbers. So not only for the canopy, I'd be hoping to see what might the thresholds be, kind of like, for example, we sold 289 rain barrels. My first question is, to how many households was that? And how many more households do we need to sell rain barrels to get to a point where we feel like, okay, we've saturated that market and we can take this off our list and say, okay, this is great, we need to focus somewhere else. So I think through the chair, that's my comment to this is if there's the opportunity to show thresholds, which may or may not be in place, to provide context of we've gone this far, but we need to go this much further based on our plans, that would help me as a citizen kind of put some of these numbers into context and say, are we doing good, bad, or indifferent?
Thanks, Dennis. I had the same comment about rain barrels. What's our target?
Yeah.
We have a year-to-year target to increase it by 10%. What's the best practice? So I appreciate with that. Do you have anything to add? I mean, I'd like staff to say, yeah, maybe you know something that's just not on the slide. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Chair. No, those are great comments. Like we'll take those back and try to improve how we present some of the information for sure. The rain barrels, it's the first year, so we have nothing to compare it to. So next year we can compare from the previous year. There is a big piece of the Rain Barrel sale is public education. So this necessarily, yes, we can provide it, but anyone could go to Home Depot and buy their own, right? So we're using it as a kind of tool to make awareness to the public on what it is and why it's important. So that's something like the town hopes to build upon. I think we have 22,000 households. I have something around this, just for context.
Yeah, we haven't got them all in.
Yeah. And the urban tree, yes, the 283 urban tree replacements. So we looked at historic when some of you were in the last term of this committee where we brought in our natural capital asset management plan. There we looked at historically how many urban trees are we replacing. We had about 250 a year. So just to give context, we had 283, I think, or 286. So pretty average. And also we hadn't, 2024 is when we approved that new plan, right? So we're not seeing the reflection of the new commitments, the new investments, the changes to meet some of those investment commitments from that plan that was approved in 2024. So in coming years into 2025, 2026, you're going to start seeing some ramping up of some of these urban tree replacements, new trees, net new trees, that kind of thing. So it's a lot of changes, right, are coming. It does take some time to start seeing the results of them, right? So yeah, there'll be more to come in years. Yeah.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Actually, just wondering if any thought had been given to, I guess it's a little bit more new and innovative about the micro or the mini forest concept. So our city of Guelph and other municipalities have taken it on. I know the Lakes and Region Conservation Authority, I think they've been piloting that as well too. So it's where you sort of take a small plot and just bombard it with native tree and shrubs, and also been known to contribute to the overall tree canopy, given, it's a biodiverse, it could be size of this room, for example, and it's so.
Yeah, thank you.
No.
Never heard of that, so yeah. We'll bring it to our.
Angela, again?
I think one of the things that could really help with the tree canopy and conservation and invasive species and the whole ball of wax is education. So I think the town could focus more on providing educational workshops or whatever at the new town square or town hall, library, whatever, about water conservation and gardening, rain gardens where you divert your downspouts into your garden instead of like through French drains, instead of having it go into the storm's sewer. So you keep the runoff on your own property as opposed to allowing it to go into the storm drains. Things like, as you said, the Japanese forest method, where you just overplant something and then with native species. And also, I think that the public really needs to be educated on native species. I was in horticulture and I was shocked at when I worked at a garden center for a little while, just for a retirement job. And I was shocked how many people would say, oh yeah, that's native. And it was like burning bush. And I'm like, no, it's not native. Here's an alternate. Or, oh, I love those Norway maples. And I'm like, that's not native. Try a red maple instead. And so I think people might appreciate like water conservation courses about landscaping and how to plant so you don't have to weed your garden. Like I never weed my garden because I overplanted it. Things like planting native species as opposed to invasives And also how to manage invasives on their own properties, because a lot of people can't even identify them. I noticed in the town park, right at Fleury Park, it's the complete border by the street is full of buckthorn. Absolutely full. And nobody in the town is taking care of that. So if you want to control invasive species, you gotta start controlling it on public land so it doesn't go on to private property. And I think if we gave more courses, I mean, we have all these town facilities we could use, offer them for free to the public to come and be educated. And I think
Dennis and then Peter.
Jason.
Okay, Jason, let's give you a try, because, sorry, I pick people up here in the room, I
Oh,
don't
sorry.
pick them up on Zoom, so Jason, you're next.
Oh, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Just a question about the green development standards. It says here that there were 5 applications for green development standards. Can I get some context as to, like, of all the applications that the town gets in the year of 2024, that 5, is it like, are they the ones trying to achieve tier 2, tier 3, tier 4?
Who wants that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'll jump in that one. Yeah, so those were all the applications that we have, that we received. They were all completed. We only have tier 1 and tier 2 right now at the town. We don't have a tier 3 or tier 4 developed. At this point, that was, we were looking at a stepped approach for implementation. So all of them are meeting tier 1 and tier 2. So tier 1 is all mandatory requirements that we have listed, and tier 2, it's a checklist, so they get to choose, I believe, 2 of the 5 options that we have available. And yeah.
Okay, Jason, is that okay?
Well, it says that you got 5 applications, but the town obviously receives more building permit requests and all that kind of stuff. More than 5, is that not correct?
My understanding, that's
Sure,
it.
go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I believe that's it. It could be that they were approved, right? Because,
We don't get a lot, is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
What we get, we
Yeah.
approve.
Yeah.
Right. So Jason, I think the comment here is that this is a net increase. We have 5 applications. And you could say there's only 5, but there are 5.
there are 5 now. I think the previous year was 20.
Oh, did you hear that?
Previous year was 20.
20, yes.
Okay.
So
And
that
just
delta is kind of important if we're getting more applications or we're getting less applications, and you're saying to me that there's a 25% reduction in applications in 2024.
Yeah, but like the approval process is quite long and complex, right? So people submit, then they have a second submission, it comes back to staff, everything gets evaluated. It's not like a very smooth, in the sense like timing wise, it's not like, okay, every quarter they're hitting targets, right? Like they get approved when they get approved, when everything is met and satisfied between the town and the new development, right? So it's not this like, it's not like a sales target, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's when they get approved, when they've met all of the requirements, and some depends on the applicants, right? They might have multiple submissions.
Okay, very good. Dennis, I think you were next.
Yes.
And then Lita.
Through the chair, I was just kind of building on Angela's comments, wondering if there might be the opportunity to formally provide some brainstorming activity ideas about how we might increase the education and awareness and ideas of stuff that has worked, stuff that hasn't worked, but I'm not sure if it's appropriate through here, through this discussion, in a separate discussion, or even a larger facilitated activity outside of this that has a larger stakeholder group. But I feel like there are a lot of ideas around the table here and such, and if there's the opportunity to kind of formalize it and bring all the ideas together, it might be of use. So
Yeah, I agree. This is an ideation think tank here with experts and people with interest. And if you come up with an idea, it gets captured and then it's considered by staff as being feasible or not. One of the things that I've always thought was the best ideation regarding education was the blue bin in schools.
Yeah.
You want to get rid of 1,000 barrels, you just get them into the schools and get the kids to be talking to that about their parents and about all the things that go on in elementary school because they're ripe and they're ready to go. So it really is a communication issue. So I like it.
So, for example, through the chair, it's like, if you're thinking for ideas right now, one of the things I was thinking is, I think I read through a local paper about how instead of using the carrot instead of the stick with regards to the anti-idle, I would love to hear more updates about that. And more importantly, as a community citizen, I'd love to see those people kind of highlighted with their permission and kind of saying, hey, being recognized in the local papers to continue that narrative. Thinking about planting wildlife species and stuff, I don't know anything about it, but if I saw a community member that was willing to be highlighted and say, here's an example of an amazing, example of what we're trying to do when we're thinking about planting a green garden, seeing that kind of highlighted and championed, that might be something that, oh, a neighbor of mine has done that. I see it being celebrated. Maybe I can also too reach that goal. So
I actually saw something on social media today about somebody hiding and trying to find somebody who actually wasn't idling, and I thought it was cute, but it is that right? It's like
so you're the chair of the idea, I feel like there are a lot of ideas that could be grouped together, pulled together.
Sure.
Be part of a strategy, a larger strategy that I'm not sure if it's just us or if it needs to be a more formalized stuff to bring these good ideas together.
Everything's great ideas. It's just the capacity to deliver it and to do it. You're just in the answer. You had the comment.
Yeah, yes, to you, Chair, just following up on ideas and things like that. Even to developers, if they have to replace trees, tell them they have to replace them with native trees.
Right.
That not just anything that they want. Because often you see them being replaced by invasive species.
Yes.
So anyways, that wasn't, I was just following up on that, but actually, just sort of all over, this is a balancing act, is what I see. Is looking at both, you have to look at both sides of the scale. What we have seen is that you've rightly put about the climate change, we have to look at our climate change projections. And we have to scale on both sides what has to drastically change. So if you're looking at the budget for canopies, then you have to also use that percentage to drastically change that, even if it has to be a fee to replace the tree. Maybe it has to be that percentage, and maybe people start looking at it differently. But just following that sort of theme with respect to the storm sewers, that you have here, several storm sewers that you had a town initiative completed in 2024, which was great, but then I'm coming back to that balancing act is what happens when you have a development, 10 meters away from a storm sewer pond. What has that done to the storm sewer pond? Again, you haven't, that hasn't been, that, I don't think the town is looking at that. And once again, I see with respect to the storm sewer ponds that various storm sewer water projects, which has been approved, 882,000 for storm sewer ponds. So what happens if there is a development right beside the storm sewer pond?
It's always, development is always one of those issues that has the environment top of mind. And when we were talking about the trees and the tree replacement bylaw, that's where that hits the fan pretty significantly when a developer wants to take out X numbers of trees. And the complaint always has been that you take a 30, 40-year-old tree and you take it down and you put a 5-year-old tree in its place, and it takes 25 years to replace the canopy that was there. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I meant to ask someone about the tree bylaw vis-a-vis the diameter and age and height of the tree that is sufficient for replacement, because of course putting a 10-year-old tree is significantly more expensive than putting a 5-year-old tree.
Absolutely.
And who should bear that cost? Because the cost is to the environment.
Absolutely.
And we're supposed to be stewards of that environment. So maybe we ought to consider some changes in the bylaw so that it's not just a 3-inch diameter tree. It has to be something close to it. I'm not the expert on it. I just want to bring it up to you folks and bring it up to staff. Because it always appears to be a problem when trees have to come down. And in this world we're in now, where there's a significant amount of development, we're having a significant onslaught against trees.
Absolutely.
So that's all my comment.
And just,
But your comment,
I was just kind of following up with this, because this is a question, following up with this balancing act, and using the climate projection. You had mentioned that there was a 15% increase in the square footage, right, of town buildings, right? Okay. Now my question, and there was also an increase, you said that there was an increase in what was used. But my answer, my question would be, in relation to how much was the footage increase? And does that equate to the amount that the energy has increased? In other words, is it just like, are you going to be able to decrease it? Like, I mean, does it relate? Does the 15% relate to the square footage? How much
Yeah.
is square footage?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, so I try to keep the graphs simplified as possible because it can quickly get overloaded, but that 50% is, so it is a weird wording, but it's the square footage equivalent. So that 15% more efficient building is per square feet instead of 100 kilowatt hours. We're now using 85, that's the 15%.
Okay.
So the square footage probably did increase around 15%.
It's 15%.
Yeah, so that's why it's a close number. So the square footage went up, but our energy consumption per foot went down. But our emissions have also gone up. So there's like 3 things we're playing with, and that's why it gets confusing quick. So we tried to.
That's my clarification.
Yeah.
I wanted is does it equate to that?
It's
Are
getting
we
more
actually
efficient.
still going down?
Yeah, we're getting more efficient. Yeah, yes.
thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
And on that note, is the presentation, where does it reside now? Is it on the website, or was it going through here before you made changes and put it on the website? Where is it available to the public?
Well, it will be, because it was an attachment to this meeting, anyone can go in the meetings and find it as an attachment. I don't think we normally put the presentations on our website. But we are creating for council, this is kind of the first draft. Eventually it's going to be going to council with a staff report, an infograph with selected pieces, highlights of 2024. And that infographic will be on our social media and on our town website for anyone to see. And then we'll be providing some kind of KPI updates, like a more comprehensive list for council with the KPI list and some updates on some of the recommendations from some of our plans that we have that we're in implementation phase. So yeah,
For me, it's very thought provoking because you hit on issues that matter and people are asking questions in here. So I think it's a great report in that respect. So, Angela?
So you, Mr. Chair, what other suggestion that I would have for the town to change in terms of resiliency and with the residents? You should relax the laws of the front gardens and type of plantings, so that people can plant more native flowers and pollinator friendly things instead of grass, because turf lawns are one of the thirstiest things you can have on your front lawn. By putting native species wildflowers, they have extremely long roots and are very drought hardy. So unfortunately, I've seen this before, people who have pollinator gardens in their front yard. In bylaw, I actually had a friend who had this happen. Bylaw came and told him to cut it down because it was above the 8 inches. And I think that's an attitude that needs to change in the town. It shouldn't just be a mishmash and horrible looking and like a weed patch, but relax the law so people, like, let them apply for a permit to have a pollinator garden in their front yard as an alternative to a lawn. And I think that will be something that could really, really reduce the amount of water being used in the summer for watering.
That's called xeriscaping. I
Yes,
believe, and
yes.
it's used primarily where there's drought areas and,
Yes.
and people just don't want them
Mhm.
watering their lawns. So it's
And it's
It's a
good for
cultural shift.
pollinators and
as much as anything, but maybe that's a comment is that we consider xeriscaping, maybe even on a pilot basis. I don't know. Might work.
let people apply for permits.
Other things, you don't have to say on trees, we can move on to other items in there. John? Jason, sorry. Jason's on the line.
Is the home energy retrofit loan program being presented to council next week?
Presented it.
No, I'm trying to, no, because it would have been on committee of the whole, and it wasn't on committee of the whole last week, so I don't know.
through you,
When?
Mr. Chair.
So-
So the feasibility,
Staff response.
through you, Mr. Chair. The feasibility study already went to council in June. And that was approved, and then staff are now in the design of the program phase. And I could just give a quick update that we're currently putting the project on hold while we York Region currently is developing some aspects of a program, so we are kind of waiting for their announcement or some details on what they're gonna be working on so that we can work collaboratively and not overlap in any of the
Yeah, we wish to be funding partners with them. not
partnerships and not something.
participation.
Yeah, exactly. So and then once that project like starts up again and gets finalized, it comes back here before it goes to council.
There will be a report, comes here and then it goes to
Yeah.
council.
Yeah.
Thank you. Rita?
Okay.
To you, Chair, just as a follow-up to that, there is $174,000 that's been approved.
Right.
For the green
Yeah, this budget authority for that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other topics? Any questions from other areas?
Sorry, I just threw all the different questions. I made a couple of comments about some of your questions. Developers do have to follow a landscape design. We have a guide with the town, so species, type of species, amount of landscape, the expectations for developers. There is actually a guide and a requirement. And that gets reviewed by staff and approved for each application. So there is a landscape report that has to be reviewed and approved from the town staff. The same goes with stormwater. They have to put together a stormwater report, which needs to meet minimum requirements for design, and then we have our town staff again review it to make sure it meets all of our LSRCA requirements, any kind of stormwater design requirements that we have set out in our engineering design criteria manual. Again, developers need to follow all of these minimum requirements, and they get reviewed and they need to be approved. And then another comment, not sure who said it, but I did take note in relation to I'm gonna call it culturally significant trees. I don't think that's quite the right word, but there was a motion recently, I believe in September, for staff to investigate and create like almost like an inventory of culturally significant or historically significant trees.
Heritage, those with heritage value.
Yes, to identify them as a starter, right? And likely maybe move forward with a plan, a conservation plan or something. So that I know also our parks team is looking into that as well. So there is quite a bit of work that the parks team is working on, and I just wanted to specify that one. And I guess the challenge with it, if it's a town-owned tree, the town maintains them, knows where they are, knows which ones are town-owned and significant. The challenge is the private property, and that piece then becomes more complex about even just. Yeah, I even identifying them and then care and maintenance and yes, so.
There's a property in the corner of Wells and Metcalf that has a number of variable heritage trees that are on private property. So we want to preserve them and we want to do all that, but they're not really our trees. It's back to the boulevard problem we had too. So I appreciate the motion that went forward, and I wanted to ask in council about how difficult that might be. But the report will come back, so that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
And
Just to you, Chair, just to follow up, I'd like to follow up with you, Natalie, on maybe talk to you about these guides, the stormwater reports and things like that. I'd be interested into looking into those.
yeah, I will tell you that stormwater management is a big asset management issue going forward from a budget standpoint. So that means A, it's on the radar, and B, we have to fund it because it's important. So, Angela, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I used to live in Toronto, and in Toronto they had a tree bylaw that if a tree was a certain diameter, you had to get a permit and to cut it down, and it could be denied if the town or the city deemed that it was like of heritage value. So I'm wondering if perhaps you could implement something like that here in the town of Aurora, instead of saying you can only cut a certain number of trees, get the bylaw to have it so the diameter of the tree, and that's what you need to permit on.
I believe we already have that implemented, but I think what you're saying is that if it's a significant, again, this culturally significant or heritage tree, that there would almost be another way to manage that type of tree versus just the standard regular tree of a large size.
And they have that in Toronto on March 8th.
I'll pass that to the staff.
I'm sure they'll look at best practices that have happened.
Yeah.
We're not the only ones that have old trees. I'm sure somebody's been doing something about it. It's brought to our, if I may, you've got something on a really great graph I liked in there on curbside waste and the amount of curbside waste. We're going to a new curbside collection and recycling. So I think that data is going to be very, very important for us going forward. Because I mean, everything we do should be best practices, making it better, not tailing it off. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And I did see in the minutes that we're asking for a follow-up on the blue bins and collection of waste. So that hasn't come back to us yet, but maybe I'd like to see that in our next cycle, simply because we have to, because the citizens residents are very concerned about it. And I know we're in a state of flux, not quite knowing who and what is happening, but I think there should be a note that should be some urgency on the information to residents about curbside waste. Because I know we had a CIM, but I don't think it answered all the questions.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm still on that issue. One of my concerns there is in terms of waste diversion measurements and the extent to which, are we going to own those numbers still, or will that belong to Circular Materials, the not-for-profit organization? So just wondering, because I think in the first year out, after the program is rolled out, I'm skeptical as to how well that will be rolled out anyway. We'll lose our apples to apples, oranges to oranges comparison, because we'll no longer be measuring the same things, because they're already saying certain things will now be accepted into the bin that hasn't, into the blue bin or into their blue bin that hasn't been accepted before, and there might be some things that are not accepted, and so forth. So I think that our year-over-year comparison will lose some of that data while they're figuring things out.
Good question. Yeah. It's about data collection and metrics, and we all should be concerned about data collection and metrics and everything. There was I'm just bringing this up. We talked about trails there, and you had the number of kilometers per resident in there. Do you have some comparators to other communities, Newmarket, Stouffville, others? I think that residents always, they go, okay, so I got a half a kilometer. Where's mine? And but what we should be looking at is, are we doing better than the average, or are we somewhere in the middle? I think the compared to others would be a useful metric next time you go through that and gather. Angela?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in terms of the trails as well, I live in the southwest quadrant. There are no trail systems in the southwest quadrant at all that connect to any trail. So if you look at from Yonge and Wellington south, there's no trails. So for residents in my quadrant, we have 0 trails per person.
Do you want to tackle that?
Go ahead.
We do have a trails master plan that's being updated all the time, and we're very aware of where there's inefficient and insufficient amount of trails, and there's efforts to try to do it. But again, it has to do with public land, easements, private land, et cetera. So we're now, particularly in that area, we're concerned about new developments and what new developers can do to try to increase the amount of public land adjacent to those trails. You see it at Shining Hill, where there's a big development there behind St. Anne's, but the developer was interested in helping connect the western part to the eastern part through the trails, and that's an excellent time to do it. So again, the Southwest is pretty well established.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the one area that I thought could have been developed, but it wasn't put into the plan for that particular developer, was the old tannery property.
Right.
Because there's already an existing trail at the bottom where George Street Public School was. They could have put a trail by that where the tannery is, but there's nothing there. And then beyond that, going north towards Wellington, there's a property that's it's like an L shape, and it's it abuts on Mill Street and Tyler, and they can't build on that because it's part of the EP zoning. You could easily connect that and across the street to Fleury Park and Matcham Park.
Good reminder that when I'm in council, I need to take a look at the trail system. Tannery, you're quite right.
They could easily have had a trail connecting George Street to Fleury Park.
One of the things that we talk about when we talk about communities and quality communities is connectivity. And we should be having that uppermost in our minds all the time. Ken?
Yeah, just theory, Mr. Chair, is I think it's also part of the transportation master plan, the trail system as well too. So it's not specific to the city or environmental, but it's also part of the wider.
Right. And I also have a couple of things I wanted to bring up. You guys didn't bring them up, so I hope you don't mind. But there was a motion about motorized vehicles on trails. And I think it would be interesting to have, and it probably won't come to this body for another while, but I think it would be interesting for us to start thinking about how our comments will be about motorized vehicles on trails. We're getting a proliferation of all sorts of and various types of vehicles of various classifications or no classifications at all. And so they don't fall under any particular jurisdiction with respect to enforcement, and we're trying to work that out. But someone brought it up on the trails, and I think it's worthwhile for us in this group to start thinking about our comments about those things. So I'm sure the report will come back.
Just as a follow-up, are you suggesting we talk about it now?
No, because I don't, you're welcome to have it, but the best use of our time, I think, is to have staff come forward with their report. They bring it in here, and then you've got all the pros and cons and best practices and other things that have happened elsewhere.
Okay.
I just want you to, you're having dinner with people and you're talking to your like folks, it's bring it up and have a chat. And then it comes back here.
Just as a.
You represent a large group of people that have interest in the environment, and it belongs in the advisory committee, I think.
Just a few people have made comments to me about this.
Okay.
So that's,
I'm sure it's not gonna come back until the spring, because it's a bylaw that will affect something happens later on, even more importantly, because of the winter approach. So, do you have a comment on that, Vijay? It's probably wise. Always get the facts first, and then let's talk about them with the facts.
Yeah.
Gentlemen on the, up on virtual, any other comments or questions that you may have about the report? Seeing that, how about, around here, or we had our last? Okay, so the motion then is, that is moved and seconded, is that the memorandum is received and that the Environment Advisory Committee comments regarding the environment progress be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. And our clerk has been taking all of those things down diligently. No more questions on it? If there are no comments, I'll just call a vote. All in favor? Before we adjourn, Leah, can we talk about the new business again? I mean, we brought it forward, but
Right, and actually, I had talked to, Chair, Natalie earlier this week, and I think it's been covered.
okay.
I'm satisfied it's been covered.
Yeah, and there was a comment about the blue box, which is why I brought it up when we were talking about blue box stuff. So as long as it's going to come forward with the comments, that would be great.
And it was just with the minutes, what was in the minutes, of course, to be brought forward.
Yeah. So it was brought forward, and now we're saying it again.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. If there's nothing else, can I get a motion to adjourn? Andrew? Ken? All in favor? Thank you, folks.
But it's
Please, we're Canadian.